The skies of Theron burned crimson. Cities lay in ruin, their crystalline towers shattered into dust beneath the bombardment of the Zerath Dominion. The invaders were ruthless, efficient, predators who had enslaved or exterminated countless. Weaker races. The Therani, gentle herbivores with soft features and luminous eyes, were not warriors. Their civilization thrived on artistry, science, and culture. They had never built warships, never forged armies. They believed the galaxy's great alliances would protect them should danger ever arise. That faith was now being tested, and it was failing. Every starport on Theron Prime sent the same message into the void. "We are under attack. Our people are dying. Please, any who hear this, help us." The transmission reached the Galactic Council first. The chamber was filled with silence after the message was replayed. The great empires weighed the cost of intervention. Deploying fleets was expensive. Risking lives against the Zerath Dominion was dangerous. And besides, the Therani had little to offer in return. One by one, the counselors looked away. Their silence was louder than any refusal. The Therani's desperation deepened. Their people huddled in broken shelters, praying to stars that seemed deaf to their suffering. They expected aid from noble worlds, from long-established civilizations, with fleets vast enough to crush the Dominion. What they did not expect was that their plea would echo across an unassuming sector, reaching a planet most dismissed as backward: Earth. The answer from a death world on Earth, humanity listened. They were newcomers to the interstellar stage, mocked for their crude ships and violent history. Other races spoke of them in whispers, calling them Deathworlders, born on a planet too hostile for most to imagine surviving. But survival was humanity's art. When the Therani message reached Terran Command, it was played across every military channel. Within hours, humanity made its decision. There were no endless debates, no excuses of cost. Earth remembered its own history. Wars where the world turned away, genocides ignored until it was too late. Not this time. The call went out. Across the solar system, Terran fleets mobilized. Shipyards thundered as black-hulled warships powered up. Soldiers boarded carriers with grim determination. Humanity had no treaties with the Therani, no obligation. And yet they moved, not to negotiate, not to beg the Council for permission, but to fight. First contact in fire, the Therani were gathered in the ruins of their capital when the sky above erupted with fire. They thought it was another Zerath bombardment. Instead, massive vessels emerged from slipspace, ships the Therani had never seen before. They were not elegant like council vessels. Their armor was angular, scarred, painted black to swallow the starlight. Their weapons bristled openly, monstrous cannons glowing with contained fury. These were not ships of peace. The Therani panicked at first. Who were these newcomers? Had more predators come to feast upon their dying world? Then the newcomers spoke. Transmission cut through the chaos, blunt and unadorned. "This is the Terran fleet. We have received your call. Stand by. We will deal with your invaders." The Therani wept in disbelief. They had begged for diplomats, for mediators, for some shield of mercy. Instead, they had been answered by predators, human predators, armed for war. The Battle of Theron Prime. The Zerath Dominion fleet encircled the planet, confident in their superiority. They had crushed countless worlds before. But when the Terran ships appeared, the Dominion hesitated. They had heard whispers of humanity. Whispers of Deathworld soldiers who fought like berserkers, who did not surrender, who tore apart empires when provoked. Whispers, they thought, were exaggerations. They were not. The Terran fleet fell upon them like wolves. Missile salvos lit the void, tearing through Zerath cruisers. Railguns roared, punching holes clean through battleships. Terran drop pods rained fire as armored marines slammed into planetary strongholds, wielding weapons the Zerath had never encountered, brutal, efficient, devastating. Where the Thirani were gentle, humans were merciless. The invaders who had feasted on the weak now found themselves prey. The fear of the predators. On the bridge of a Zerath flagship, Admiral Krath stared at his tactical display in disbelief. "These humans," he snarled. "They fight like demons. They should not be this strong." One of his aides trembled. "Reports say they come from a death world, Admiral, a planet where everything kills, where survival shapes monsters into men." Krath's spines quivered in unease. He had thought the Thirani an easy hunt. Now his fleet was being dismantled with surgical brutality. For the first time in his career, the Predator felt fear. Liberation. When the battle ended, the skies were littered with burning wreckage. The Zerath fleet was gone, shattered, routed, annihilated. On the ground, the Thirani emerged from their shelters to see Terran soldiers moving among them. The humans were armored giants, faces hidden behind helmets, voices deep and commanding. They distributed food, secured the streets, and rebuilt defensive lines in case the Dominion tried again. One Thirani elder approached a human officer, trembling. "You came. You saved us. But why? We are nothing to you." The officer removed his helmet, revealing tired human eyes. He knelt to meet the elder's gaze. "Because you asked for help," he said simply. And no one else answered. The elder wept, for in that moment, the Thirani realized what humanity truly was. Not just predators, not just Deathworlders, but protectors willing to fight when all others turned away. The galaxy. React's news of the battle spread like wildfire. The Galactic Council was stunned into silence. They had dismissed the Thirani as a lost cause, yet the humans had done what no one else dared. Whispers filled the halls of power. Some called humanity reckless. Others called them dangerous. But to the oppressed, the enslaved, and the forgotten, humanity became something else entirely. A beacon. For when the Thirani had expected aid from the so-called guardians of the galaxy, it was the Deathworlders who had answered, and their answer had been written in fire. The Galactic Council Hall was a monument to civilization. Its walls shimmered with crystalline designs, its ceiling arched into a dome painted with starlight, and its floor was polished to a mirrored sheen. Here, empires debated war and peace. Here, the fates of worlds were decided, not by battles, but by votes. On that day, the chamber echoed with the trembling voice of the Thirani delegate. His form was delicate, almost fragile, his large eyes glowing with desperation. He stood at the central podium, his voice breaking as he broadcast the plea of his people. "Our worlds burn. The Zerath Dominion rains death upon us. Entire cities are ash. Millions are enslaved. We beg, help us, send ships, send anything, please." His words hung heavy in the air. Around him, representatives of the great empires shifted uneasily. Some whispered in private channels, others studied their data slates as if the appeal did not concern them. The Thirani had always been seen as harmless, too weak to defend themselves, too insignificant to bargain with. They contributed no fleets, no resources, no soldiers to the Council's collective defense, and so silence followed. Finally, the High Chancellor of the Sarathi Empire spoke, her voice as cold as the void. "We regret your plight, Thirani. But our fleets are stretched thin protecting our own borders. Intervention is unfeasible," another counselor added. "To face the Zerath is to invite war. We cannot risk open conflict." Murmurs of agreement spread. The Thirani delegate's ears drooped, his body trembling. He looked around desperately, but no one met his gaze. The Council, guardians of galactic peace, were abandoning him. The unexpected transmission. The council prepared to move on, shifting to the next agenda item, when suddenly the chamber's comnet crackled with interference. A voice cut across all channels, deep and uncompromising. "This is Terran High Command. Transmission to all council members. You've had your debate. We've had enough. The Thirani are not alone." The words struck the chamber like thunder. "Who dares interrupt council proceedings?" one dignitary demanded. The answer came not in words, but in images. The chamber's display filled with live feeds, massive fleets moving through slipspace corridors, black-hulled warships emerging like predators from the abyss. Thousands of them. The council gasped. Human ships were ugly. By galactic standards, scarred armor plating, jagged frames, engines that roared with primal fury. Where most fleets sought symmetry and elegance, the Terran war fleet looked brutal, designed for survival and destruction. A council member whispered what many were thinking: Deathworlders. The whispered reputation, humanity, had only joined the galactic stage a century ago. At first they were underestimated, dismissed as crude and backward. But whispers had followed them ever since. Whispers of soldiers who fought with madness in their eyes. Whispers of fleets that destroyed pirates with terrifying efficiency. Whispers of a people forged on a world of storms, predators, famine, and war. A death world, the most dangerous kind of planet cataloged. Survival there meant ruthlessness. It meant resilience. It meant that every human carried the legacy of countless generations who had clawed their way out of extinction. The council had laughed at the rumors, comforted by the thought that Earth's fleets were small, its influence minor. But the sight before them silenced all mockery. The Deathworlders had mobilized. The debate turns to fear. "Humans cannot act without council approval," cried the Vorn Imperium's ambassador, his voice cracking with outrage. "They already have," muttered the Kashari delegate, her mandibles twitching nervously. "And if the rumors are true, the Zirath will not withstand them. They are reckless, dangerous. If they win, what precedent does this set?" another shouted. The chamber dissolved into panic. For centuries, the council had operated on the principle of controlled power. Measured responses, carefully weighed costs. Humanity was breaking that order. They were acting with no concern for politics, no hesitation, no permission. One by one, counselors realized what that meant. The balance of the galaxy was shifting, not by vote, but by force. The battle broadcast as the council argued, new feeds appeared on the central holo screen. The humans had reached Theran space. The Zirath fleet, sleek and predatory, moved to intercept. Their commander issued threats, mocking the humans as upstart barbarians, and then the Terran fleet attacked. It was not elegant warfare. It was savage. Efficiency. Missiles streaked through the void, railguns thundered, and boarding torpedoes ripped into enemy hulls. Human Marines stormed decks with brutal close-quarters combat, their battle cries echoing through open comm channels. The counselors watched in horrified fascination. "This is slaughter," one whispered. But to the Thirani survivors watching, from the surface, it was salvation. Every human strike tore chains off their people. Every fallen Zerath ship was vengeance for the burned cities. A predator's last realization, on the bridge of the Zerath flagship, Admiral Vec clawed at his console. His fleet was dying faster than he could issue orders. "These humans fight like no species I've ever seen," he snarled. "They don't hold formation, they hunt." His aide's voice quivered. "Reports confirm it, Admiral. They come from a world harsher than ours. They are not prey, they are the true predators." Admiral Vec's last sight was of Terran battleships closing in, their weapons glowing like the wrath of gods. Aftermath and revelation, hours later, silence fell over Theran skies. The Zerath Dominion fleet was gone. shattered wrecks drifting, in orbit. On the surface, the Thirani emerged from hiding, gazing at the human ships overhead. One human transmission echoed across the planet. "This is the Terran fleet. Theran space is secure. Your people are free." The message spread across the galaxy within hours. To the Thirani, humans were saviors. To the Zerath, they were executioners. To the Council, they were a threat to the old order. The Council reconvenes back in the Council chamber. Silence reigned. The Thirani delegate stood again, tears glistening in his eyes. "You would not help us," he said softly, his voice carrying across the dome. But the humans did. No one dared respond. For the first time in generations, the Council was powerless. They had witnessed a fleet outside their control rewrite galactic law through action alone. The High Chancellor whispered into the silence, voicing what all feared. If humanity chooses to answer more calls like this, the galaxy will never be the same. And in that silence, the truth was undeniable. The galaxy had expected aid from its ancient empires. Instead, it had been the Deathworlders who answered, and their answer had been fire. The Zerath Dominion had long ruled the fringes of the galaxy with claws of iron and fire. To them, other species were cattle, soft, weak, born only to serve or perish. When their fleets descended upon the Thirani, they expected little more than another easy conquest. The Thirani were fragile, peaceful herbivores with delicate frames and shimmering eyes. Their civilization thrived on harmony, song, and art. They had never waged war, never built weapons of mass destruction. Against the Zerath, they crumbled like glass. Their last hope was a desperate cry for aid, broadcast into the void. But the Zerath only laughed. "No one will come for you," sneered Overlord Karvek, leader of the Dominion fleet. "The galaxy fears us too much to lift a finger. You are ours." And for a time he was right. The great powers of the Council ignored the Thirani's pleas, unwilling to risk their fleets. The empires nearby turned away, muttering excuses. The Thirani wept as their cities burned, believing themselves abandoned. But their signal had reached somewhere unexpected. Somewhere the Zerath had dismissed as irrelevant. It reached Earth, the Eye. Hunters arrive. The Zerath fleet loomed in orbit over Theran Prime, their warships circling the planet like carrion birds. Karvek watched with satisfaction as his armies broadcast images of the enslaved Thirani to the galaxy, proof of Dominion power. Then, without warning, the stars burned. A ripple of slip space tore open, disgorging Terran warships. At first, the Zerath thought it was a mistake. Surely no one would dare oppose them. But the vessels kept coming. Massive black-armored carriers, cruisers bristling with weapons, escort ships like wolves encircling prey. Karvek narrowed his eyes. These ships were not council-built. Their frames were jagged, ugly, scarred by countless battles. Their engines flared with raw fury, and their weapons glowed hot even before firing. The comnet flared alive. A voice deep and cold echoed across the system. "This is the Terran Defense Fleet. Theran space is under our protection. Withdraw immediately, or be destroyed." Karvek laughed. "Terrans? The primitives from the Death World? You dare challenge me?" But deep down, a chill slithered through him. He had heard whispers of humanity, the Death World legacy. The galaxy cataloged worlds by danger levels. Most advanced species came from temperate paradises or stable biomes. But Earth was different. It was classified a death world, one of the harshest ever recorded. A planet where storms could drown continents, beasts hunted with fangs and venom, plagues rose without mercy, and climates shifted with brutal violence. To survive, there was to adapt, to fight, to endure constant trial. Humanity had been shaped by endless struggle, war, famine, predators. These were the forge that made humans what they were. The Zerath Dominion had feasted on many races, but never on a Deathworld species. Now they would learn why. The battle ignites Karvek roared his defiance. Crush them. Show these primitives their place! His fleet surged forward. Sleek Dominion cruisers fired lances of plasma. Swarms of attack craft dove toward the newcomers. The humans did not hesitate. Their fleet moved with terrifying coordination. Massive railguns thundered, hurling projectiles at near-relativistic speeds, ripping straight through Zerath shields and hulls. Missile barrages lit up the void, each warhead splitting into dozens of sub-munitions that hunted targets with savage precision. Then came the boarding pods. Ugly spiked cylinders that slammed into Zerath vessels, cutting open hulls like knives. From them emerged human marines, armored giants wielding weapons built for brutality. The Zerath expected fear. What they found were predators. Humans fought not with elegance, but with primal fury. In close combat, they tore through Zerath warriors, their shouts echoing through the corridors. For Earth, for the fallen. The predator becomes prey. On the bridge of his flagship, Karvek watched in horror as ship after ship fell. They don't fight like prey, his second-in-command whispered, trembling. They fight like us. No, Karvek muttered, realization, dawning as explosions rocked his fleet. They fight worse than us. They fight to win. Every Zerath tactic failed. Ambushes were countered before they began. Boarding attempts ended with humans butchering their way back into space. Even when, outnumbered, Terran ships refused to break formation, the predators who had hunted the weak now found themselves hunted. The void itself seemed to turn against them as human warships closed in, engines burning like wolves' eyes in the dark. Therani eyes. From the shattered surface below, the Therani huddled in shelters, watching the battle unfold in the skies. At first, they feared the newcomers. Humanity's ships were monstrous, their tactics terrifying. But then they saw something that made their hearts swell. The Terrans didn't target cities. They didn't fire on the planet. Their fury was directed, only at the invaders. Even as they fought like demons, they shielded Therani lives with precision. The prey had asked for saviors. What had come were predators, but predators on their side. For the first time, hope sparked in the Therani's luminous eyes. The end. Of Karvek hours into the battle, the Dominion fleet was broken. Wreckage drifted across Theran skies, burning like falling stars. On his crippled flagship, Karvek raged, refusing to accept defeat. His claws scraped the command console as he screamed, "They are primitives! They cannot—" The bridge doors exploded inward. Human marines stormed inside, their weapons raised. Karvek snarled, ready to die fighting. One marine stepped forward, helmet reflecting the fires outside. His voice was calm, steady. "You thought the Therani were alone. You thought wrong." The last thing Karvek saw was the flash of Terran, steel. The aftermath. When the guns fell silent, the humans remained. They secured Theran cities, distributed supplies, and dismantled the chains left behind by the Dominion. To the Therani, the Deathworlders looked like monsters, towering, scarred, unyielding. But these monsters offered food, protection, a future. 1. Therani elder approached a human commander, his voice trembling with awe. Why would you help us? You owe us nothing." The human removed his helmet, revealing tired eyes hardened by war. He knelt, speaking softly. "Because we know what it means to be prey, and we refuse to let it happen again." The elder wept. The galaxy trembles news. Of the battle spread faster than light across the council. Whispers turned to fear, fear to panic. The Deathworlders had revealed themselves, not as victims of circumstance, not as curiosities of evolution, but as a force capable of annihilating predators who had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. Some species called them reckless, others dangerous. But to the oppressed, the enslaved, the forgotten, humanity became something more: a shield, a sword, a promise. For the Thirani had begged for aid, expecting diplomats or mercy. What they received was the fleet of a death world, terrible, unyielding, and unstoppable. And from that day forward, every predator in the galaxy remembered one truth. When the Deathworlders answer a call, it is not salvation they bring. It is judgment.